Hey everybody, welcome back to A Sweet Journey. I am Sonia, also known as Sweets, and today I thought it would be a good idea to continue in a conversation that I was having recently, and I'll include that card here. Yesterday, I shared a little bit of a book club that I am in, and we were just talking a little bit about the pages that we had read, and there were a few things that were included in the reading that I thought I would just do a part two and talk through that and some of the takeaways, some things that I am enjoying about the book. So there's several things that have stood out to me that I definitely wanted to make sure that I added, just because I think that it was key and it meant like everything when I read it. Okay, so on page 85, and I'll just read a little bit of it, it says, "Start before you're ready. Remember," so it says, "Don't prepare, begin. Remember, our enemy is not lack of preparation. It's not the difficulty of the project or the state of the marketplace or the emptiness of our bank account. The enemy is resistance. The enemy is our chattering brain, which, if we give it so much as a nanosecond, will start producing excuses, alibis, transparent self-justifications, and a million reasons why we can't, shouldn't, won't do what we know we need to do." And so the admonition here is start before you're ready. And so that kind of goes against the grain of a lot of things I think that we're taught, which is that you should prepare, you should get all of these things together before you get started. But this is, hey, you're not ready, that's fine. And I think really more than anything, it's having the courage to step out even when you don't have all of the pieces. And it's easier said than done, because I know that there are things that I would love to get started on, and I am a preparer. I'm a process person, so it's like I have to have these things done before I can get started. But there are other things that I have just literally jumped in, and when I jumped in, what I found is what I needed was inside of the process, not prior to me starting. So the next nugget that I wanted to share with you is the idea of clarity. Sometimes you can't get clarity, even if you try. And so then the question is, so what do you do? What do you do if you don't have clarity just yet? And the admonition is to go ahead and start. Some key takeaways here in this, and this is on page 88 of the book, just in case you went out and bought it, which I highly recommend. But he says, like, sometimes you have to go ahead and get started. Go ahead and take small steps. Start researching, start writing down ideas, maybe do an outline. And then he likened it to like a cook. Like if you have a cook who's making stew sometimes, or a cook making anything, sometimes there's an idea, you have a vision of something, but you don't necessarily have clarity about what all needs to go in there. And so you just start. You just get in there and you get it done. And as you get in there and start getting it done, then you realize this quote, which says action. Well, first of all, he says, "The problem is most of us associate figuring things out with thinking. But in real life, it just keeps us stuck. It keeps us from moving forward and taking action. Action isn't something that comes after figuring things out. Action is a way of figuring things out. And so as we perform actions, we begin, the way begins to just kind of unravel for us. And so be clear, take the next step, or be confused and take the next step. Whatever the case, the point here is to move forward. Okay? So that's the clarity piece. So even if you don't have clarity just yet, eventually you'll run into something that makes sense. So just move forward. So don't let that stop you. So that's the second thing, is clarity. Then the third thing that I wanted to point out is this last little piece. And the last little nugget that I wanted to bring out that I thought was phenomenal is the slightest move. And this is on page 92, 93, like between 92 and 94. And what this is sometimes we are in a position where we feel kind of stunted. We feel like we're just kind of frozen and we can't move forward. And this could be emotionally, physically, whatever. And so the slightest move is very simple. It is, okay, so I can't do the big thing, but can I make the slightest move? One example that he gave, and I don't know if it's in this part or I don't know if it, but small muscle movements are helpful. He said that his daughter had called him and she was really emotional about school. She was overwhelmed. She was like, I'm going to quit. I just don't really have the energy to do this. She was having problems relationally. And so he heard her out. He listened to her. And then he said, okay, here's what I want you to do. I want you to clean up your room. He asked her about the status of her room. She said her room was a mess. He said, clean up your room and then call me back as soon as you're done. As soon as you're done cleaning your room, call me back so we can finish. And so they hung up, and 45 minutes later, she had cleaned up her room, and she was like, oh, Dad, I'm fine. Everything's fine. I'm good. I feel so much better. And so it seems like it was like a clarity moment, but really there's something to be said about the slightest movement. Something to consider in this, he says, often once the, so he says, so one thing to consider is this, he says, in the slightest move, one of the central principles of Morita therapy, which is a lot of the principles in this book, is that we have much more control over our body or our actions than we do over our mind, which is our thoughts and our feelings. So a distinguishing element of Morita's work is to put effort into getting the body to take action rather than trying to manipulate our thoughts or our feelings. And he says, often once the body is moving, there's a natural influence on our emotional state and on our thoughts. And I think that that's really important. What it reminds me of is when I have rheumatoid arthritis, and oftentimes when I'm having some sort of episode, my entire body hurts, and it hurts to walk, it hurts sometimes to move, and having an inability to move physically is impactful emotionally. And I can sit and I can try to get my head right and my thoughts and my feelings about the things right or whatever. But what I find is the more I think about it, the more it really impacts me physically and emotionally. And I don't want to get up. I don't want to move. I just want to stay in bed or stay, on a couch or something like that. But what I discovered is if I would get up and just move and start with something small, like maybe I just get up and go kind of walking around the house, or maybe I come down in the basement, even though I know the stairs are going to be painful, but I walk around down in the basement or something like that. If I just choose to get up, sometimes I even go to the park and I'm in pain, but I go and I do it. Every time I feel 100% better. It's kind of like unthawing. Those are the three areas that I thought were still important to consider from the book club that I attended this week. So I guess really the most important thing now is it's up to you. It's a small challenge. Like, what are you going to do with this information? So there were three things for you to consider. One is start before you're ready. So do little bits of things. What can you do like today? What can you do right now? Like you can pause and go and do it. And if you do, please leave it in the comment section. Second thing is clarity. Like, action is definitely is the way to figure things out. And then the last thing is the slightest move, which is it kind of loops back to start before you're ready. Same concept, which is just get started. I remember for years and years in my life, I felt like God was saying to me, every time you take a step, I'm going to open a door. And so what that would always say to me is like, the problem is you refuse to take a step. You refuse to move forward. And so I encourage you today to learn from that. Take a step, even if it's a small one, towards something that you are really excited about doing. And then I would love to hear what you're working on, what projects, what things are you little by little bringing to pass. So thank you all so much for watching. I appreciate you for stopping by. Please give me a thumbs up if you enjoy this kind of content and subscribe, and I will see you tomorrow.